Hey guys, this is Blue Lotus Art Gallery at Tawasin Mills. They have some beautiful art here at reduced prices. Me and Ekim got a great deal on some beautiful pieces. I highly recommend you check it out. Michael Keeling, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, Cynical Theories was going to be the topic of our podcast today. It's a book by James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose. You didn't get a chance to read it.
No, I've been waiting for this book to come out for a long time. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed that I haven't found the time for it, but I've had a very busy last few weeks.
And I read it rather quickly, and I'm certainly not an authority on the topic.
Yeah, but there's still a lot to say about it.
It's really interesting, and I do see the phenomena, like in the college that I went to, Langara.
I'm interested
SFU
in
now.
finding out what your experience is, having read it, more so than me trying to explain any of it to you, because I couldn't do as good a job as James Lindsay could, by no stretch of the imagination.
It put a lot of things into their place. Yeah,
I've been watching it happen.
Yeah.
For over a decade.
Yeah.
So, or probably about a decade.
Yeah.
I've been watching this happen. That's my education. So I'm not an expert in that. I can give an academic explanation of all of it.
No.
But I've been watching it, and I'm familiar with all the names.
I've seen it. Like I've seen, people who are possessed by this ideology. I've interacted with them. I've seen their little meetings, the little cult meetings.
Yeah. I've been in weird spaces.
Yeah, safe spaces.
Yeah.
Found myself in a safe space at one point. I was actually playing Jordan Peterson in the safe space to one of the girls I was working on a project with, and I could see the guy sitting at the counter, like, just fuming that I would bring Jordan Peterson into a safe space.
Yeah, where was this?
Langara.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what do you mean, like, safe space?
Oh, it was...
where they have, like, therapy dogs?
I didn't see any therapy dogs, but... No, it was just a bunch of people who seemed to share this sort of critical theory mindset.
Yeah.
And it was just like, safe space.
But like, was it just declared a safe space?
Yeah. Like I'm sure it had a.
I mean, like you.
It was some kind of like, I'm sure that it had some kind of an organizational purpose. This little center. I mean, I didn't discover it for years of attending Langara until I was brought in there. But yeah, it was just a little area, and people could come in there and sit down in a comfy little room and hang out. And then there were other rooms where there was some kind of activist work being done there. Yeah.
Okay.
It was an office of sorts.
An office of sorts that was like declared a safe space. But what did they mean by safe space?
Well, the safe space. I mean, what the safe space.
You're not supposed to bring Jordan Peterson into a safe space.
No, in fact, I don't think I realized.
That is violence.
Yeah, it was major violence. I didn't realize.
It was an act of violence.
Yeah,
they didn't have the rules on the wall.
I don't think I realized it was a safe space at first until I started reading the walls and getting the vibe of the people that were in it.
Yeah. I never really thought of safe space as being like an actual place.
Oh, they got.
But it's just like you declare something a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Like a room would be a safe space by declaration, as in we're going to use this as a safe space, or right now this is going to be a safe space.
I saw like a poster outside of the school talking about the concept of the safe space.
This phenomena has gone into overdrive. The critical race theory is on a rampage right now. Like in the I think like the US military now is like implementing de-biasing.
That's huge. That's everywhere.
Yeah. And there's going to be some serious blowback.
Retraining.
Like, this book couldn't have come out at a more perfect time. I mean, perfect. It would have been better earlier, obviously, but like, shit's really hitting the fan, and this book comes out at the same time. Like, it seems.
So apparently, I'm 2 shootings behind, but the last thing I was hearing about was that Kenosha, Wisconsin shooting of the black man who was reaching into his car, and they shot him in the back.
Yeah.
I read nothing but articles that implied that this was a racist, unjustified shooting, and then I saw somebody talking about how well, this guy he's not exactly innocent in this case, right? He was actually being arrested on 3 counts, including aggravated assault, and he bucked the police officers off his back. He was tased, and then he was walking away from officers, ignoring their orders. And then he has already told them that he has a knife in his possession, and now he's reaching into his car and picks up his knife, and his knife is found on the driver's side, and it's heard in the video, the police officers yelling, "Drop the knife," before he's shot. And yet this is put out to the world as a racist, unjustified shooting. They're stopping professional basketball and professional hockey games from being played to protest racism.
But we did something wrong. It's probably baseball. We probably shouldn't have basketball. It's getting out of hand. We're killing people now because of baseball and basketball. We can't.
Well, because of racism. Yeah. So you're accusing. It's trial by public opinion, right? You're convicting these people of racism before the facts of the case are out.
The reality is in America, shootings of armed and unarmed suspects is guaranteed to happen, no matter what you do. Because cops have to shoot people. Cops will have to shoot people. And some of that time, on paper, it's not going to look justified. But the cop has found himself or herself in a position where, in order for them to guarantee that they come home to their family that night, they have to shoot somebody.
Right?
And apparently... that's just the best that they could do at that moment. You can't make that perfect.
Yeah. And according to the Washington Post database, that has happened 18 times to black people. I'm not sure if that's in history, like in recorded history.
No. That's
or per year. Is that annually?
Because that would make more sense if it was 18 times per year.
Well, it's in the low double digits.
In 2019, I think there was 9 cases of unarmed black men. Pardon me, murdered by cops, which actually isn't a lot.
Where? I mean, United States.
In United States. And I could be, this is all off the top of my head. I don't, and I shouldn't be throwing out any numbers.
I got that number from Ben Shapiro. He said it's in the low double digits. He said 18 or 18.
Of unarmed ones, though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But, I don't know if he was talking about annually, like in the year. I thought he meant just in total.
No,
no,
you're kidding. No.
Okay.
No. 9 is definitely a figure from 2019. 18 maybe like the last couple of years or something. But anyhow, I'm not going to throw out any numbers because I don't have them in front of me.
Washington Post database, unarmed black shooting.
There was this guy on Twitter, black guy, who posted a list of shootings of unarmed white guys by cops.
Yeah,
and it was a list. You know, there was I don't know, like 10 of them.
Okay.
And the stories are, they're all the same. But it's pretty. Buying into the narrative that America broadly. Yeah, it's pretty comparable, white to black, and I know that there are some studies that suggest that cops are less likely to pull the trigger if they're pointing the gun at a black person.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more likely to rough them up if they're black.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It does look like it's below 10. It's below 10 for the year
of 2019.
And it's been going down. dropping a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We've made a lot
year
of
over
improvements
year since 2015. Yeah.
We've made a lot of progress, which is what the critical theorists don't want you to focus on is progress.
No.
Because as far as they're concerned, it's the system is either evil or it's good, right? They don't care about progress. They don't care about things getting better. They care about tearing down the entire system. It's systemic. If it's systemic, you can't progress it away.
No.
Right? Progress is going to get you nowhere is what they want you to believe.
Right.
That progress gets you nowhere because it's systemic. You have to tear down the whole system. It is Marxism. Like, how could it not be Marxism?
Exactly,
They want to tear down the whole system to rebuild from the ashes. It's not like exactly Maoist. It's not exactly Leninist.
No.
I don't think
they know.
It's yet one more head of the hydra of Marxism.
Exactly. I agree with that. I think that's right. But it's like, because the things they're focusing on are pretty narrow. I don't think they conceive so much, because they're focused so much in on race and gender that's what they're all about, and that's what they're arguing about. And they don't really, they think it's all systemic, and but they want to change the rules. But
like,
again, you're right. It's not progress.
Racism. We used to have a word for that.
Yeah.
Right? This is the thing. It's made for a college level audience. And you have to actually understand what they're talking about when they talk about things like whiteness. You have to understand what they mean when they talk about discrimination plus power, right? Yeah. You have to understand the Foucaultian background to their definition of racism.
Right.
When just your regular Joe Sixpack or soccer mom hears white people can't be racist, that sounds completely ridiculous.
It's nuts, yeah.
It's completely nuts.
Yeah.
But if you're an academic, you understand what they really mean. And what they really mean is this whole different definition of racism.
Yeah, the idea that James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose have is that it's going to alienate these people of the minority groups, because they don't know what the fuck these people are talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I was yelling and screaming about long before James Lindsay was on the scene.
Yeah.
Was that you can't expect your regular average person to understand what you mean by racism. You're equivocating with racism.
They're trying
and there's
to
like a
educate
whole
everybody about
generation of college students who are taught as if discrimination plus power is what racism has always meant. And that if you think racism is just discrimination based on the perceived ethnic or racial background of a person, if you believe that that's what racism means, you're just ignorant.
And they'll bully you and browbeat you to ensure.
So
that
imagine
you get
what like a Gen Z or a boomer experiences is going to be of this generation of kids bullying them and treating them like they're completely ignorant because they still believe that racism means discrimination against somebody's perceived ethnic or cultural background. What they're doing in that case is they're taking away the tool that a boomer has for redressing grievances for racial discrimination. Right? If a male boomer is being attacked based on his perceived racial, cultural, and ethnic background, he doesn't have the language to redress his grievances for that. Because as soon as he does, he's showing his ignorance that he doesn't even know what that word means, right? You're not allowed to say that that's racist for you to act and talk that way. And here's the thing, this the disparaging tone towards white people, and I put that in scare quotes because there is no race of white people. The disparaging tone is racist, right? First of all, it's racializing skin color, which is not race. But it's what I would like to see, if it were up to me, I would, if I had the time, we should do this. We should start the anti-racialism movement. So we'll write a book, How to Be an Anti-Racialist. And by that I mean, stop making everything about race. Stop racializing everything. Stop reifying race. Because this is the thing about critical race theory that I don't understand. Well, I only understand it in that I know that apparently everything is supposed to be turned on its head and upside down. You know, feminists are supposed to be, you know, the protectors of Islam. Everything is upside down these days, and critical race theory is reifying just the existence of races, and your racial identity is supposed to be super important. This is all just the world is upside down.
It's turning all of the liberal progress that we've made over the last, since the 60s, the civil rights movement. It's turning it on its head.
They are actually, Democrats are trying to repeal the civil rights law in California. It's a real thing. Look it up. Just look. Repeal civil rights law, California.
The not being able to discriminate or preferentially treat people based on the color of their skin or other identity categories.
Yeah. They not only they either believe that progress never happened, or it is inconsequential, or they're actually trying to roll it back and they think it was a bad idea, or all three at the same time. Like, these people can hold completely contradictory beliefs in their head,
and that's a feature, not a bug.
Model of the world. Yeah,
that it's incomprehensible and contradictory and
but I think we need to start an anti-racialist movement that's against racializing things.
Yeah, well,
because they're not wrong when they say that, like, the white race was invented and is a social construct that is a very American thing.
Yeah.
And it did have a lot to do with slavery. And so how about we stop that? How about we stop?
That was the idea of liberalism,
calling
right?
people white.
Right, equality.
As if there's such a thing as a white person, right?
Yeah.
Like a biracial person who's half Asian, like Tim Pool.
Yeah.
Tim Pool's half Asian, but you actually would have to stop and think, if he has a tan, he kind of looks like he could be Mexican, maybe. But you just think you'd put him in the white category until you thought otherwise.
Yeah.
But what does it matter? He's got white skin. Asians have white skin, right? A lot of Asian populations have whiter skin than you and I do.
Yeah.
Right? Are they white? There's different cultures. That's not a race. And discriminating against somebody based on their culture, well, that happens in high school when you're bullied for being what am I thinking of? What was your generation of like, fuck, what were they called? Anyhow, your subcultures. It shouldn't be any different.
Geeks and whatever.
And no, but what am I thinking of? The dressing all in black.
A goth.
Solemn. Yeah, I was thinking of the yeah, anyhow. It shows you my age.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be, that should be the same category of thing, really, you know. And bullying in school actually is a really big deal. I think we've actually made a lot of progress in that area too. But cultural practices, like why there are plenty of people in Black Lives Matter who will talk as if it's actually like a bloodline issue, like full on like Nazi style racism.
Really?
You know?
Because it seems like it's mostly
Like
social
that
constructivist,
white
like
people are born that way. I know.
that it's that race is a social construct, and yet these people have these lived experiences that are more.
Well, here's that's the I strongly suggest people go and listen to the New Discourses podcast and the episode on the Mott and Bailey. James Lindsay goes over the Mott and Bailey strategy. I really wish I could explain it better. But there really are people in Black Lives Matter who are like black supremacists,
Yeah.
right? And it like that is
Well, that's
really
a real thing. Yeah, I know. And then there's people who want actually are like black nationalists. They believe black people should have their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that that's what Black Lives Matter is. It's not.
No.
But
it's more the other thing.
Yeah. But do they call that out? They wouldn't, right? That's one thing that I find really dangerous is they refuse to call anything out, like that execution of a Patriot Prayer member the other day in Portland was celebrated.
Tell me about that. What happened?
Well, I haven't followed it for a couple days because I've been really busy. But I've watched the video and from a couple of angles and cleared up audio of it. There's Patriot Prayer was involved in they did like a driving through Portland, like flag waving on trucks and stuff, and I think they even had a boat flag, like Trump supporter thing. I don't know much about what the event was, but I know that later on that night, there was a shooting of a gentleman who was part of the group Patriot Prayer, which I'm pretty familiar with because I watched them actually form. Like I was tuned in during the battles of Berkeley when Patriot Prayer was first formed. But anyhow, this Antifa member who knew who Patriot Prayer was. I've actually seen him at another rally where Patriot Prayer was. So what you hear in this video is here's I think he says, here's a couple of them right here, or here's two of them right here, something like that. And then you hear somebody else say, right there, bang, bang, something like that. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing. But basically, like, we got some, we found some.
Yeah.
You know? And then a guy says, those ones, bang, bang,
yeah.
and shoots them in the chest.
Him?
Yeah.
Was it one person or two?
Just one.
Okay.
You'd have to go and watch the footage. Don't just take it from me. Maybe we'll put some links down later. I'd like to actually have you help me edit a video together so that we can show the two angles with the same audio, because the audio from the angle that was like right there is much better than the full view.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that was celebrated. Like rally that night, they actually cheered. Apparently, Antifa has been like dancing in the streets over this Patriot Prayer guy being assassinated.
And what did the Patriot Prayer guys do? They racist?
No, they were started by what is he? He's half Asian, part black. I don't know. He's not white. And I've watched them from the very beginning. They kind of troll Antifa.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, what's his name? I know his name. The Joey Gibson, the guy who started Patriot Prayer. He's not white, and plenty of the people who are in or have been in Patriot Prayer aren't white. But what he was doing was starting like demonstrations or showing up to demonstrations to provoke Antifa to show what they are, right? That wasn't their whole purpose. He actually has done a lot of tours and talking. He's very like, Christian, spreading the gospel of love and peace kind of character, right? Joey Gibson is a really good guy. There's plenty of people who would be shocked at me saying that, but no, Joey Gibson, I would be somebody I would trust to babysit my children, like he's a good guy. I don't have children, but I don't agree with him on things, like he's pretty anti-abortion. I'm not, but I respect his view. But he's not racist. He's most definitely not racist. That's so absurd, especially when it comes to like Asians. He did some videos where he went to Hong Kong to support the Hong Kong people rising up against China.
So why then do you think these Antifa guys just decided to shoot some of them?
Because they're like sworn enemies in Portland. Yeah. Like Patriot Prayer comes out of Vancouver, Oregon, which is it's like a suburb of Portland, or at least Joey Gibson does. He actually, I think that's where he ran for. What did he run for? Was it Senate? I think Joey Gibson actually ran for the Senate.
But how do they justify killing them? Like, at what point do the laws of the United States not matter?
The girl, we should post a link to that too. The right before they cheered in this first clip I watched of them cheering on it, she said, I don't feel sad at all that a fascist died tonight. And something about let the mayor or whomever know that we can hang up our own trash or something like that, or take out our own trash.
Wow.
Hang out our own laundry or something like that.
This is where things
basically
have
like just let it be known we can deal with these people ourselves. So basically, like, not only am I not sad that this Patriot Prayer guy was shot and Patriot Prayer equals fascist, but that they plan on doing it again.
Yeah.
And that isn't a unique message at all. But you will never hear that on mainstream news. You might on Tucker Carlson, on Fox News, right? But people have no idea just how bad it is down there. Mm-hmm. And it'll come as a shock because they haven't been watching this like the Antifa Patriot Prayer thing has been going on since 2016. when Patriot Prayer first formed, but Patriot Prayer formed as in response to Antifa during the Berkeley battles of Berkeley. But you'd have to go back earlier than that to watch. I could have told you that this would happen if you didn't listen to those of us who have been yelling and screaming for years.
It's funny. I told Eckham 2 days ago. I was like, they're probably going to start killing people. Like it's not too far away that they start killing people and believing it's justified. And apparently this happened that day.
I'm actually surprised that it's taken this long. Mm-hmm. It because it's not for lack of trying. I mean, these wouldn't be the first attempts at killing. Yeah, this is just the most brazen. And the reason why this guy was willing to do it was because he knows that he wouldn't get caught that night, right? There's no cops around. It's so easy to get away with murder these days in America. Homicide rates are skyrocketing, right?
Well, why were there no cops around?
Because they're busy at the riots.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Where Antifa knows where the cops are.
And you said I'm 2 shootings behind. What's the other one?
It was that poor kid who, I think he was a minor, so he shouldn't have actually had this gun. I don't know the details.
Okay.
But he was
something about that.
Yeah, he was protecting a business, and he was there. He had medical supplies too. He was there to also help anybody who needed help. But he ended up getting chased down by Antifa thugs, who one of whom had a gun and fired that gun. He fired the gun in the air, but the kid didn't know that. He was being chased, and at the time that the gun was fired, he was being cornered by a guy who just threw something at his head. That looked like it was something heavy inside a bag, maybe. Some people thought it was a Molotov cocktail, but I don't think so. And one of them, as he had fallen when they were chasing him, tries drop kicking him. One of them hits him with his skateboard. But when the one guy chasing him down shoots a gun in the air, well, what is this kid gonna do? What do you expect this kid to do? You're chasing him, you've cornered him, he's fallen, he's on the ground, and you're gonna grab his gun, right? He can't wait until you hit him with that skateboard properly and knock him out, right? You don't attack somebody with a gun, period, because their only option is to shoot you. That's their only option, because they know that if they don't use the gun, you'll use the gun. They have no reason to believe. That's why you don't resist arrest. It's one of the most irrational behaviors, is to resist arrest, even when they're telling you to stop resisting arrest, and they're being an evil cop pretending like you're resisting arrest when you're not. Don't fight somebody with a gun unless you have a gun.
Right. That's why it's so insane that this guy that was obviously resisting arrest incited, riots and got professional sports games to not be played.
Yeah, I'm more sympathetic to because the public is being played.
They are.
They're totally being played. I wish that we could avoid these killings.
But it's working so easily. Like, people who I respect as intelligent, they're like, 7 times, that's so excessive. It was in the back. Just what the news media is saying. They eat it and they buy it. They don't.
Well, and to whatever extent that it's true, the thing is none of us have any idea what it's like to be in that situation. And the reality is that none of us ever should be in that situation. But if you were, you probably wouldn't have done any better. I wouldn't have done any better. That's what I said.
I said I definitely would have shot the guy.
Yeah.
Based on just what I know of that case.
Yeah.
There's no situation where I wouldn't have shot him.
Yeah. Could we make it such that cops are fucking superheroes who could do better than that?
Yeah.
Yes, but not by defunding them.
Yeah.
Through world-class training. If we trained our cops
Exactly.
like we trained, SEAL Team 6, then yeah, we could have those expectations. But don't expect that to be cheap. You can't defund your way there.
That's not. But they're against the system. So defunding is a good idea.
No,
because they want things to crumble.
They want to hang up
things to
their
get
own
worse.
laundry, and they want to take out their own trash. This
Yeah.
is an anarchist
Oh yeah.
revolution.
Well, that's yeah.
Black Lives Matter is an anarcho-communist organization, and I wish I could just say that to people I know who have given them money. You do realize that you are paying these people to commit acts of violence.
Yeah.
Because they're like, buying bulletproof vests and shit with it, and
Yeah.
and organizing fucking riots and beatings, and like,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah, see, I had to argue with Eckham about the stopping of the Canucks game and how ridiculous and insane that is, and how powerful these Marxists are getting. And he's like, what are you talking about? That was 7 times in the back.
But what does that have to do with hockey?
Well, racism.
Like, what does that have to do with our ability to
Protesting racism.
It's protesting racism, but nobody is being helped by hockey being taken off.
Well, yeah, because it gives it spreads the awareness of systemic racism.
How about you take all the money that was made from that game and you give it to an organization? Like, if they had hockey continue, and whatever money that they made from it, if they can even make money from it anymore, give it to Black Lives Matter. I would actually find that to make more sense.
Yeah, but aren't you too depressed to play or watch sports after such an evil act of racism has occurred?
And I think that if you're a hockey fan, you're even more depressed than you were before, because you don't even have your fucking hockey. Are they trying to make us hate these anti-racists? Are they not satisfied until they've lost their support from everyone?
Well, that's what James Lindsay saying is going to happen, is that people are going to see all this.
Oh, it's already happening.
The rational-minded people are going to see all this and say, "What the fuck? We need Trump to get reelected."
Well, the rational people are already seeing this.
Yeah.
Like, plenty of us. We just don't know how to speak about it. Like, this is all happening silently in our heads. We don't know how to use language in a way to communicate it. We've been checkmated into keeping it to ourselves. I really think it's perfect. This is not organic. There is no way this is organic.
Oh, I see it as perfectly human, just like the communist revolutions that happened everywhere else in the world.
But that wasn't entirely organic either. But no, this is something else. I really, the level of organization involved, and the speed and swiftness of the last 5 years especially.
It doesn't strike me as odd at all. Like, things spread like viruses, right? Mind viruses.
Yeah, I know, but there's it's spreading organically, in the same sense of, but it's being artificially helped, and by that I mean that they're not all useful idiots, right? Like, for example, there's an agenda. There has to be people at CNN.
There's people pulling the strings, for sure.
There has to be people at CNN who, when you tell them that that the way that they're covering the news is getting Trump elected, there has to be plenty of them who know that already.
You made sense of that from a perfectly economic perspective, because their bread and butter is Orange Man bad.
Yeah, right? That's their product.
So
They would be long dead by now if they didn't have Orange Man Bad as their product. It's a top selling product, and it's the only product they have.
so get him reelected. You got
Yeah.
more product to sell.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and that doesn't have to be deliberate. It could be the case that not that everyone at Fox News is fooled into selling this product, but thinking that selling this product is gonna put put them out of the business of selling that product. How they could all be that dumb is beyond me, but I mean, it's theoretically possible that they're all duped. They all actually think that they're defeating Trump, but they can't be that stupid. They can't be that stupid. I mean, but I mean, the bubbles that journalists live in are strong and small. Journalists live in these little circle jerk fucking jacking each other off by reporting on what other people have reported on, and they only really talk to each other.
You can't go outside of the mandated
but they don't
narrative.
But they don't by nature, not by design.
Yeah, but by design as well, though, because there's ex-CNN
I know
reporters that go on Joe Rogan talk about how I wanted to do this story, and he was like, no, you can't do this.
Sorry, I said that wrong. By nature and design, they know better, but because of consequences, but they're also trained to stay in their lane without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right? And then they get caught inside a bubble where they don't even know that outside that bubble exists.
Like an echo chamber.
Yeah. Right. And they're an army of useful idiots, but they can't all be useful idiots. The only way, and you and I just had a long discussion about this, the only way that they could all be useful idiots is if, for example, China has artificial general intelligence and this is being engineered. And that makes perfect sense. It explains a lot. It explains away the coordination and the coordination problem, because you wouldn't have a coordination problem with artificial general intelligence, right? There wouldn't be too many people involved. You wouldn't need anyone involved. Not even the Chinese government would know whether or not that they were being played by this artificial intelligence. So a conspiracy of one, that's all you'd need, right? And you would, this machine could be told to make the rest of the world more like China. Something simple, because if you'd have to be really, really careful about what you tell an artificial general intelligence to do. But if you wanted to turn America into if you could somehow, and it would be really complicated or technical, I can't tell you. It's a serious problem trying to communicate to an artificial general intelligence what your intention is. But if China had an artificial general intelligence, which they're in a much, much better position than any other organization on the planet to create it, because they have more access to information than Google does. I could see the instructions for this machine to be to expand the what is it, the San Empire, the communist, the Chinese have this, and I don't want to, I'm going to butcher it, but they have this idea of there being there can only be one sun in the sky, and that sun being China. And they have like a hierarchy system of race, and I think it's I'm gonna butcher it. I'm not even gonna try to say what it is. But they have like a hierarchy of races. It's very racist. The the Chinese government is a ethno-fascist state. It's everything that your like Trump derangement syndrome crazy nutso is afraid of happening in America. They're right, but it's China, not America, and it's not. Russia is just a little like lapdog of China, and America is definitely not doing the bidding of Russia at all. There is nothing America is doing that benefits Russia. The idea that Trump somehow working for Russia is got to be one of the most absurd things, and it's like mainstream news. They can still just throw that out there, the Russia connection, even though like we know that it was just a complete fabricated conspiracy theory based on made up bullshit.
Yeah.
And the news can still throw it out there because they've never had to admit that they made the shit up.
No.
That's the world we're living in. It's, I swear to God, I was dialed in wrong. They fucked it up when they dialed me back into the Matrix. It's more interesting. I think maybe that's what they were thinking. Is like, oh, you want to see what it's like? You want to see what it's like to know that you're in a simulation when you're in a simulation? I don't know. Maybe that makes, you know.
I don't know, man. Jordan Peterson's always pointing out. I know I always go back to him, but he's my introduction to this situation. Taught me all about it. He's always going back to the fact that this is a replaying of history. It's the communist mindset versus the capitalist mindset. And
there is a playbook to it, but I really don't think that how do you explain the hold in the corporate world that it has, like how it has Facebook, Twitter, Google,
activist scholarship, indoctrinating students who then go out into the world and go into corporations, and then the whole new, multi-billion-dollar industries of diversity, inclusion, and equity officers are in every organization now.
Yeah, and that was not true in in 1990, if you were on the left, you read Manufacturing Consent and you distrusted giant corporations. You knew the media was lying to you, right? Explain to me how academia has flipped the left from being the least trustful of giant corporations and corporate media to being the most trusting of giant corporations and corporate media, and how conservatives are now the least trusting of these giant corporations and least trusting of corporate media. Well, tell me how academia did that.
That's a good question.
Tell me how academia got feminism to be the greatest ally of the most misogynistic, patriarchal rape cultures in the world. Tell me how academia did that. Tell me how academia...
because of the critical theories, the queer theory, the critical race theory. It's just because of the fundamental assumptions that they have.
Yeah, well, but they're absurd. You and I can see how crazy these theories are.
But the people who believe them can't.
I know. But you have to indoctrinate the school children into seeing this, right? What I'm talking about is how you are holding the rest of us hostage, because the ones who are actually indoctrinated in school, that's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the population.
Yeah, and then so what
Like
I've
we're
heard
talking like 1% maybe.
No. In the educated people that end up in the more high power positions.
No, I'm talking about the people who actually studied like grievance studies and shit.
Exactly. Well, that's
right?
no. If you're in the social sciences, there's a good chance, 50-50, if you're not careful and if you're young and impressionable, that you're going to end up with that mindset. It's so widespread.
But you're not. But there's a difference between like it catching on because your friends sound smart when they say it.
Your professors.
But being not seeing how crazy it is. Like it didn't happen to you or I. I was exposed to it just as much as
I went back as a mature student who had been exploring and truth seeking for many years.
I watched during Elevator Gate in the skeptic community. I watched the skeptic community overnight get decimated by people who were clearly not thinking with critical thinking skills, and it was practically overnight, like a matter of a year. I watched people that I highly respected as critical thinkers who understood the principles of critical thinking. Within a year, this whole community was completely decimated, and the majority of them had all been taken hostage by these people. That didn't happen in universities. That happened over the course of a year. People in our community were over the course of a year. These weren't people who were being indoctrinated. They were taken hostage.
Yeah, no, I got a guy like that too. Like a guy who was a friend of mine. He wasn't without his...
I'm talking about the scientific skeptic community.
No, this guy was intelligent, right? And me and him had good conversations on all of this stuff,
yeah.
Nuanced perspectives. And then this girl who was absolutely possessed by this ideology turned against me, and he sided with her.
Yeah,
because he wanted to remain a part of the thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a hostage situation, I guess.
And you can see the same pattern that happened with Elevator Gate, with Gamergate, and all these other different communities, like, you know, the knitting community. That was a hilarious one. The knitting community was decimated in the same manner.
Yeah.
I don't know the story very well because I'm not part of the knitting community, but writing circles and like sci-fi circles.
Yeah.
Comic book circles, Dungeons and Dragons.
But man, I'm hard pressed to find examples of professors that I had who weren't Marxist. Right? I got one that I can think of. Dayar Asmaro. He's not Marxist. He's more right wing in his mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of them are
well,
far left, postmodern,
no,
critical
our personality
theory.
Psychology professor was conservative.
Yeah. There's another example. He's a more reasonable fella. Yeah.
But he's actually conservative, which I respect.
Yeah.
Especially for the position he's in.
Yeah.
I like that guy. He was more hard-headed than my other ones. He didn't.
I had a good relationship with him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how strong a relationship I had with him, but I respected him for not being pushed around by me as much as other professors.
Yeah.
But we did end up having good conversations. He's a good guy. I like him.
Yeah, but between those two, and they're actually friends, they are,
I think just one of my professors while I was there for that 1 year, I could describe as being possibly Marxist. I know he supported Antifa.
I had a history teacher who continuously said, you don't have to be a Marxist to appreciate some of the things that Marx said. He was very, very, very Marxist in his mentality.
Yeah.
No, I definitely saw a lot of the sort of critical theory influence in
I was
most of
surprised
all of
by
my
how
psychology
little
instructors,
I
all of them.
saw in
All of
like even in my sociology class, I was expecting a lot more
Sociology
of it.
was Marxist. My
Yeah.
one of them wasn't. I had
I'm
one
pretty
who
sure.
was more kind of another guy who was like fascist.
Yeah, one of them one of the textbooks written by a professor there was clearly not Marxist, and
Yeah.
I should have made a point of getting his class when I took sociology.
Yeah.
Ended up dropping sociology because my professor was an idiot. I won't say who.
Okay.
But I was actually surprised at. I expected the climate to be more corrupted than it turned out to be. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Cascadia is a fucking Marxist nightmare these days. You've got Evergreen State College is not far away from here.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing, watching people get. What is that organization at UBC that keeps deplatforming people? UBC's had some crazy scandals, but it's also big. Like, I wouldn't complain, really. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily really all that bad, but I've heard some terrible stories like that. Who was that guy who... there's one big story out of UBC, but it's like Laurier University. I would have I've followed so many stories, it's all become a blur now. Plus I've actually a lot of there's so much that I've witnessed that I've never been able to catch up with like delving deep enough or not deep enough, but like actually like taking notes of what I'm witnessing, because I can't make a full-time job of this.
Yeah.
If I could have found a way to make a full-time job of this, like back in like 2014,
Yeah.
I would be way ahead of James Lindsay. Way ahead of James Lindsay.
Right. I'm taking it on now.
Yeah. But James Lindsay's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he's doing a really good job of it.
Yeah.
He's doing exactly what I meant to do a long time ago, but I don't have the time for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm choosing to
I
do
have
this.
just enough to watch it, to tune in, to watch it happen.
Yeah.
And to see, like, to piece the pieces together. And
I'm starting to do my research. I'm going to make a career out of this, man.
The only thing that I'm surprised at is the speed. How fast it's sped up. How sudden it's happening.
Yeah, well,
And
it's when
the
something
coordination,
becomes...
there's clear coordination going on.
Yeah, but that's the way, like, popular movements happen. They happen fast. They spread. Like, that's the way
Yeah, but
humans
Nancy
are.
Pelosi
It's popular.
and Ted Wheeler and
They're just following the trend.
Kamala
That's all.
Harris. Okay, Nancy Pelosi is not. Doesn't believe the shit one.
That's what
bit.
I mean.
She's weaponizing
They're just
it.
weaponizing it. I know,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying it's a real popular movement. That's all.
Well, of course, yeah, and it's being weaponized in a coordinated fashion.
It's a weapon of its own too, though.
Yeah, but it's being weaponized in a coordinated
pathology.
Yes, but you cannot deny the coordination. If you can't see it, you haven't been paying attention. There is clear coordination in the weaponization of this movement.
I get what you're saying, but yeah, they're coordinating.
Like,
but
you understand
they don't
what
need
I'm
to
saying,
do much
but
coordinating. They don't need to. It's
coordinating
itself.
They do need to
It's like a wave.
to make this happen too fast for us to fight it. If
It's
they
just
let
happening.
if
It's
they let
happening.
it happen on its own, we would be able to react to it.
Well,
the coordination
reactionaries are coming for sure, and that's a bad
Well,
thing. But
where have they been all this time?
man, I almost I got so heated when I was experiencing this stuff directly in college, that like, yeah, I could see myself. I could see myself like,
Yeah.
like depending on how
I
far
am
this
surprised there hasn't been mass shootings.
goes. Yeah.
And I get this feeling like the corporate media is just waiting for one to happen.
But you don't want to be reactionary, right? Because these are the people on the fringe, and the people who are going to be reactionary, the people who are going to be called fascists, are going to do things that can probably rightly be described as fascist. Those are reactionaries, and you don't want to be that. You want to be, you want to have liberalism overcome
but
this.
There's a lot of crazy people out there.
I know.
Right? Like mass shootings happen.
They do.
And why are they not happening all over the place? Like why are there less white right-wing white fascists shooting people than there were before? You know, like that was a thing. It would happen ever so often.
Yeah.
Far less than if you asked Antifa, it happens every day to 6 million people, practically. They talk about how every day they're you know, black trans people are being murdered by white supremacists. The black trans disabled people are being genocided by white supremacists.
So that's how they
every
justify
day.
their violence.
Yeah.
That's how they justify shooting people.
Yeah. But you can't. You. Have I lost my thought? What was I just saying?
I think you're about to talk about the reactionaries to this stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I was just saying that's another thing that I can't understand. Or maybe one of the few things that I can't even really place is the restraint on the part of the right wing.
Yeah. Why is there not more people going out there and
like this is unusual constraint.
Yeah.
Because there's enough crazy right-wingers out there.
I like that maybe.
And if they can see what I can see, and I can see plenty of conservatives who feel under attack, and I don't blame them because conservatives are under attack.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, it's because you're not conservative, or you're not hanging out with conservatives, or like paying attention to
I'll tell you what, I was very much on the left for a long time, and it's only actually now I consider myself a centrist moderate, and I consider myself conservative in order to counter the radical left.
I consider myself an ally to conservatives.
Yeah, at this point.
But like the way that conservatism, I consider myself a liberal, and I for me, part of being a liberal is respecting and appreciating the role that conservatives play in my life, right? The liberals are the ones, like, I think a better way to put it that I often do is that I'm a classical progressive, not a classical liberal, although that describes me actually pretty well, but like a classical progressive. The liberals are the ones who are, you know, they're advocating on the like being, you know, liberal with the use of government and welfare and such. And conservatives are about constraints.
Yeah.
Right? And you have this push-pull that happens in the deliberative mechanism in the government, in political philosophy, between the pole of progress and the restraint from conservatives. Right? And it's easier to demonize conservatives because the progressives are trying to improve things.
Yeah.
But conservatives are trying to improve things or keep things good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you can't just blindly go forward.
Yeah.
You need a sober second thought.
Yeah. If I were to like give an overall overview of my political perspective, it would be progressive. right?
Yeah.
But I find myself listening to conservatives like Ben Shapiro, right? And thinking that they're making the most sense right now
Yeah.
because there's too much insanity on the liberal left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's well reflected in um like one reason why I'd have a hard time calling myself conservative. How many like pro-life conservatives are there really? I mean, I'm sure actually there's plenty, but there's plenty of ways of being like that. But um, I'm practically a infanticidalist when it comes to my support of abortion, but I'm not anti-abortionist, right?
Yeah.
I respect their views, um, but I do think that the left still is kind of crazy when it comes to abortion too, and they almost celebrate it, you know. It's nuts. Like myself personally, I think that whatever happens inside your body that's your a being inside your body has no business, is under no law but your own. That is you have supreme godlike supremacy over beings that live inside your body. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not pro-life. I am pro-choice, but at the same time, I mean, it's a choice that you got to make, and at some point, you might feel a little bit bad.
Yeah, and I think that you have, and not only do you have the right to end the life of a being that's living inside of you, but that being that's living inside of you has known nothing but like the biological definition of heaven or nirvana, really, right? You're not robbing them of anything that they have. Their life has been like nirvana.
I can
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
They don't have any relationships that you're robbing them of.
Yeah.
They don't have any experiences of the world that you're robbing them of.
At a certain point, they do, though. At a certain point, they're experiencing the external environment, the mother's voice.
Yeah, but they don't know what that is.
They do.
Well, yes, but they had. This is the way that I look at it. They don't know what happened, right? But once they're outside of the body, now they're a communal responsibility. Now they fall under the protection of the state, right?
I think it's a personal choice, abortion, but I think like morality does come into the decision whether or not to terminate at a certain stage of development.
I think, well, using it as a form of birth control, morality, you can definitely make an argument that it's immoral to use that as a form of birth control out of just negligence and ignorance, right? But even more so, like actually celebrating abortion, the morality of the culture of celebration of abortion, I find kind of disgusting. But somebody choosing whether or not forcing somebody to bring somebody into the world, I think is beyond rape.
Yeah, I get
That's
it.
beyond rape.
That's an issue that I was not thinking of at all when I'm thinking of conservatives, really. I'm just thinking of their general sort of attitude towards economics.
Yeah. But I can 100% respect anti-abortionists. I have friends who are rabidly anti-abortion, and I can appreciate that, because if you really do believe that people are killing babies, like institutionally killing babies, especially like black conservatives who see it as being a genocide of black babies, I can appreciate that. Like, I get it. They argue that that Democrats have convinced the community of like the black community to slaughter their own children. This is the way that they see it, right? And that's not a completely invalid view of the world. It's I would hate to live in a reality where I interpreted it that way, but it's not an invalid way to view the world, right? The would the black community be better if they had more children? Probably not. If they didn't have fathers to help raise those children, it would probably be worse. But I can respect. I have a lot of and you know what else I like about conservatives? They're polite. Liberals are fucking mean people. They're hateful.
Well, nowadays.
Yeah.
They used to be.
Sorry, did I say liberals like the left these days?
Yeah, yeah.
They're mean and hateful.
Yeah.
They're so quick to hate.
But that's a new thing.
Yeah.
That's a new thing, and it's all to do with this idea that every interaction in society is an expression of prejudice.
And that is not true of conservatives. That they're quick to hate.
Yeah,
you can sit down with any conservative and have a beer.
Yeah.
If they drink beer.
Yeah.
And they'll respect you for being misled, but they're not going to hate you for what you believe. Some of them will, like the real wacko cults and stuff. But your regular conservative doesn't see your regular liberal as being evil. They see them as being misled, indoctrinated by their school system or something.
Kind of childish or whatever. But
liberals tend to see conservatives as knowing better. Yeah. They're just being selfish, and that they act, and they're racist and hateful. Yeah. They frame everything that a conservative does and says as being motivated by malintent, or at least ignorance and negligence and a lack of heart and caring.
Yeah.
Right? And they feel justified to hate the conservatives. The left is full of hatred these days. And you don't see that on the right. But you see a lot of the left talking about how hateful the right is.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more opposite these days.
Right.
It could not. This is just one more thing that's completely upside down. When the left says the right is hateful, that couldn't be more opposite from the truth.
It's like we were talking about, though. It's because they have this they have these identity politics and they read prejudice and hostility or whatever into every situation, and so they're paranoid. It's a paranoia mindset, and they hate because they have this false view of the world.
And they'll believe anything bad about conservatives.
Yeah.
You could make up any story.
Yeah.
If it wouldn't matter if you said that some right-wing person just went and slaughtered a bunch of people, they wouldn't be surprised. But that's not happening, and it would be a really big deal if it did. Like we've seen it in the past, but there's plenty of like Antifa members who really do believe that that's happening every day. That their conservatives are killing trans people every single day. Like their numbers are dwindling. There's a fucking genocide going on. They don't seem to actually. They'll never write this down on paper and try to do the math, because the last thing they want to do is find out that their numbers don't add up. Because their numbers don't add up. The ones that they're operating on in their head, right? The distortions, right? Like they don't actually stop and think that it couldn't actually be possible that there's that many Nazis in the world. The world being that full of Nazis wouldn't look like the way it actually looks, you know. But they've got this distorted lens on the world that has them terrified of Nazis everywhere.
Yeah, because it's white supremacy, and it's
it's word
just
magic. They've been able to interpret everything as white supremacy, and white supremacy is fascism.
And this is
so you. It's
this is after racial prejudice based on immutable characteristics has been long since illegalized. It's like we live in a society where it's socially unacceptable to judge a person based on their race or discriminate against them.
What hasn't happened before? What the Orwell, the way he pointed out, and others have too, the way that the definitions of words are manipulated.
Doublespeak.
Yeah. It was pretty bad in like Soviet and other communist revolutions, but the Soviets was a conspiracy of a small group of people who had taken over a government who were engineering right. Well, they weren't doing that to get to the revolution. Right? They were doing the Orwellian shit once they got into power, right? Who's doing it now?
Yeah.
Right? We're not repeating history the way that history happened before. No, they're definitely playing from the same playbook. That history is being used as a guide, but there's coordination happening. They've already won. They're already in a position where they're capable of engineering society the way the Marxists did once they post-revolution. This is what's different.
Yeah.
There's coordination on a giant corporate level. And that's not the universities doing it. That's not grassroots. It wasn't grassroots by the time Stalin was in place. Stalinism isn't grassroots. Right? Maoism, well, it started grassroots, but the kind of manipulation and engineering of culture, that's post-revolutionary.
Well, who do you think it's coming from then? Because I see all of the communication happening at the universities. I see all of the indoctrination happening
So do I.
in my classes.
So do I. But there's to get to capture all the people who didn't go through the indoctrination. That's the part that I don't think you can explain.
Okay, that makes sense. So why is the media going along with it? Well,
they do have incentives, but that's how you get anybody to do anything, right? Is through incentives.
Yeah.
I honestly find the idea of coordinated effort by artificial general intelligence on the part of China, I find that to have the most explanatory power. But the problem is that almost by definition you couldn't have evidence of it. If you had evidence of it, that would mean it was too late, because it couldn't let you know it was doing it until it didn't matter that you knew it was doing it, right? So artificial general intelligence can outsmart the intelligence of all human beings combined, right? The entire human race could not keep up with it once it got far enough ahead of us. Once it got all of its pieces in place, then it wouldn't matter whether or not we could see that it was operating. It'd be too late. It would just blitzkrieg, right? And it really feels like we're at the beginning or in the midst of a blitzkrieg. It's set up all of its pieces on the map, and it's just attacking from all sides. And those of us who have been unable to communicate what's going on, what we've been seeing, because we sound crazy saying it, we're starting to, like, this is happening. 2020 vision. People, I keep running into people who have been thinking about this for a long time, and now they're talking about it. Because now it's obvious. And maybe now it doesn't matter whether or not we know it's happening. Maybe all the pieces are in place that it's too late. You know what I would, if you want to know whether somebody is tuned in, ask anybody this question. Which country's culture is more racist, China or America? Anybody who says America is just out of their fucking mind. Completely fucking out of their mind.
Yeah.
It's killing itself. It's destroying itself fighting racism.
Yeah. Right
now. And China is incredibly racist. Incredibly racist.
So how's China racist?
Well, I mean, I don't want to like throw numbers around. But like you can see, like there was this commercial I saw in China where it was for a laundry detergent, and it starts with this woman has a black man. If I remember it correctly, it was an attractive black man. But what happens in the commercial? I can't remember all the details. But she puts him in the laundry, and then he comes out as an attractive Asian man. and that's, supposed to be that made her happy.
If you talk to any Chinese
this
people
product
about
can Asian wash, I guess that would be the term now.
Have you talked to any Chinese people about the Chinese racism?
Yeah, I've talked to I had one friend I've talked to more than one Asian friend, but I can think of one conversation particularly. Yeah, no, they're very racist.
Okay.
They were black people weren't allowed to be served at McDonald's in China for a brief. That became a whole big scandal. Black people were being targeted as being at high risk for coronavirus before it was really spreading in Africa. McDonald's in China was saying that they wouldn't serve black people because they thought that they were at higher risk of coronavirus. No, they're incredibly racist. They've got concentration camps with millions of Uyghur Muslims being forcefully not castrated, but they're sterilizing their population of Uyghur Muslims
due to coronavirus.
No, because they're breeding too fast.
What's their racial heritage?
The Uyghurs?
Are they Chinese?
I mean, there's like a hierarchy of races, and I guess the Uyghurs aren't up there. Yeah. I think they share some maybe linguistic and cultural heritage with Turkish people.
Yeah,
I think. Did you know that China has the largest population of Muslims outside of Muslim countries?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
But they're not like Middle Eastern Muslims, right?
They're different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. Their Muslim brothers and sisters aren't coming to their defense.
No.
And you have to ask yourself why. Why is it not a Muslim-led thing? Why is it conservatives Why is it conservative freedom fighters going to Hong Kong and yelling and screaming about Hong Kong being annexed by China? Why is it conservatives yelling and screaming about the Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps and an actual like technocratic genocide going on in China? Why is it conservatives talking about that?
Yeah, right. The liberals used to care about human rights violations and stuff. Now they're
They
ignoring
do.
it all. But
Not
they're
when
ignoring
it's
a lot of it.
China,
Yeah.
and not when it's Muslims.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Explain how academia does that. China is in a much better place than any other organization in the world to design artificial general intelligence.
Okay.
Why is everything in their favor?
This you might be right. You may be way smarter than me, but for me,
It's not a matter of me being
I
way
just
smarter.
can't. I don't see it. I don't
I'm older
see
than
the
you.
artificial general intelligence being behind this. I just see human. What do you call it?
Well,
Incompetence.
Well, yeah, weaponized human incompetence.
Yeah. Well, if it's weaponized by anyone.
The organic part is most of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's coordinated. There's definite coordination.
Right. Well,
going
when
on.
I think of coordination, I think of people who are power hungry, wanting to rule, wanting to.
But why isn't there the same grassroots, organic stuff going on the right and the anti-communist stuff? We're barely getting started, and you know why? Because the critical theory, the woke stuff is organic.
No, you know what though? No, I see.
That's what organic looks like.
Here, listen. What I see is people who are more reasonable. People who are more reasonable are paying attention to the intellectuals that are talking sense about this stuff.
You don't think these people who have been captured by this are not reasonable people?
Well,
these are reasonable people.
I'm talking about the many millions of followers.
Like,
the Joe Rogan podcast.
It's important not to insult these people's intelligence. I watched really intelligent people get captured by this. Yeah. Right. But I also watched a lot of really good, intelligent people have the fucking spine and and somehow not have the blinders on to watch it happening.
Yeah, the desire
to. But here's a good question. I really want to stress this question. Or I'll make it more of a statement, and you can raise the question yourself. There has always been opposition to this movement. It's always been there. You can go back to the Sokol hoax, right? There has always been opposition to this. You can go back to the 80s and the PC fight happening then. This culture war has been happening for a long time, right? And there's always been opposition to it. The opposition is organic. That's what organic looks like.
I see the parasite, the mind parasite of wokeism to be organic too. It's an organic mind virus.
Here's what you see. You see the two things moving alongside each other normally, and then in 5 years you watch one.
I don't see that. I see the Jordan Peterson fanboy crowd to be a fucking massive, and not just him, but the entire intellectual dark web. You know, the Weinsteins, Dave Rubin, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan's not really part of anything. He just can see it happening, and he's not fucking buying it.
He's part of it. He's fucking
he's just not buying it.
Anybody who's paying attention to the intellectual, episodes of the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, but that's the majority of people. The majority of people are not buying it.
Exactly. Right? That's what I mean.
And
so
it's just that Joe Rogan, I think it's a talent, the way that he can speak freely and pull it off. Most people can't speak freely about what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Right? And that has not been true of this culture war. Right? Jordan Peterson was fucking murdered in the press. It's amazing that he survived, and it would take somebody like him to survive as long as he did.
Yeah, but he's got a huge viewership. He's got a huge base. It's massive.
Yeah, I know. And Ben Shapiro dominates.
Ben Shapiro, that's the other guy who I was
Facebook.
trying to mention. Yeah. The intellectual dark web.
Yeah, but what are we doing? Nothing. What progress have we made?
There's nothing to do
Very
yet.
little.
I'll tell you what, if there is a communist uprising in my country, I'm joining the fucking military.
Yeah, I know, but by then it's too late.
It's not too late.
Like,
never too late. I don't see anything overly serious happening in my country yet.
By the time you do, it will be too late.
Maybe, but I'm willing to fight it. It's just I want to be moderate. I want to take a liberal approach to countering this. So James Lindsay actually offers some principled opposition to wokeism. Yeah. Right. So this is what he recommends. He doesn't recommend radical reactionary stuff. No. Right.
Violence is never the answer. No. That's what they want.
That is what they want. They want people to come out in the streets and fight.
They are foaming at the mouth. I can see it. I can feel the tension in the air, and on the part of the left, I think they're starting to get nervous because they expected mass shootings by now.
Yeah.
And that plays into their game. If they don't start getting mass shootings before November 1st or November 4th or when is it the 4th? Before Election Day, if they don't get the mass shootings that they're expecting, I think they're starting to get nervous that the mass shootings that they haven't provoked the mass shootings yet.
Yeah.
I honestly think that they expect their incitement to all this violence to provoke a right-wing response.
They want a civil war, and then they want to win it, and then they want to take over. Right?
Well, they already won the culture war.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I think that I don't know the numbers. But I think that there's a lot of, as I say, reasonable people who are against.
But don't know how to speak out against it.
Yeah.
We're held captive.
A lot of people are.
Right.
That's true.
If minus a civil war, like if Joe Biden wins, that will take a lot of that will deflate a lot of the fight against it.
Right.
People won't feel endangered by it, and they'll just choose not to even try to speak up against it, and they'll just let it happen.
Yeah.
And then give it a couple decades. It will be, the gulags will exist, and no doubt in my mind in two decades there will be gulags.
Right. If that shit takes hold, like really takes root, then I know what it looks like. I've seen. Yeah. I've read the history.
Yeah. I've been saying this for years. I'm like, if you wanna see the rise of fascism, just follow the footsteps of the communists and anarchists who are fighting in the streets of Germany.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing it now I'm seeing it being said by conservatives on Twitter.
Yeah.
I would vote for somebody so far right from Trump right now.
Yeah.
That it would make him look like a leftist.
Right.
I'm hearing people say that.
Yeah.
Like, basically they're saying, I would vote for Hitler.
Yeah.
Now, you're making me want to vote for Hitler. And I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you want to make them vote for Hitler, this is how you do it.
See, all I did was like point out the similarities between now and that point in time in German history.
Yeah. Which, of course, you're not allowed to talk about. You don't hear about how communists endangered the public to the point that they were ready to call out for a strong man to
and I was pointing out that that's what like a reactionary movement, like Hitler's reactionary movement was reacting to communism in a big way.
Yeah, like if you want to call it reactionary, reaction to what? A reaction to an endangerment of the public.
Yeah.
Right? A revolution is a disgusting thing.
Yeah.
Revolution is nobody should be wishing that upon a population. Violent revolution is one of the most horrific things that can happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been a horror. And
they're putting guillotines, like they're carting around guillotines in the streets right now.
Real ones?
They put a guillotine on Jeff like, Bezos' effigies. Lawn.
Yeah.
The effigy with a teddy bear or something. Ben Shapiro was talking about how the guillotine. They're using the guillotine as a symbol right now.
Yeah. And again, go listen to, the New Discourse podcast episode on the Mott and Bailey strategy where James Lindsay explains it, because I wish I could articulate it right now.
It's gaslighting. Making you question your own reality.
And I didn't get the idea from him, but his description, I had no idea what the Mott and Bailey strategy was, but I could always see there's this strategy of the majority of people don't actually believe that these radicals are that radical, that they don't actually mean replace the police with themselves, right? They don't actually mean like gangs of fucking thugs in the streets, like your neighborhood watch will now be your police officers, right? Nobody believes that. Nobody's saying that, right? But yeah, the ones in the ones running that whole thing, the ones who are most dedicated, the ones the heads of these organizations, the ones organizing the protests. No, that's exactly
what they're doing.
What they believe.
And they're if anybody suggests that, they say, "Are you kidding?" Like nobody.
But if you ask the actual organizers, they don't deny it for a second.
Yeah.
And you can put those two things together, and you'll still get people making that distinction. Like it's one of the most frustrating and fascinating things to do when you can find somebody who's completely taken in by this, and you can show them how crazy the BLM organizers are, and then watch them rationalize it after they've just told you nobody's actually saying that. Well, they're actually saying that. And then you just watch how the smoke comes out of their ears. They cannot, you can corner these people, paint them right into a corner, and it doesn't seem to do anything. There are some people are just, they're bit. They're zombies, but most people you can talk to, you can reason with, but some people are just bit. They're zombies. And you can explain that through some grassroots, decades long indoctrination through universities.
Yeah.
I know somebody very close to me who is bit. She's incapable of allowing me to finish an argument once she recognizes that it's going to have an uncomfortable conclusion. And very intelligent person. It really is like violence for me to make a good point. It is like an act of violence on her consciousness if I can convince her of a point that is inconvenient to the woke left. It is like an act of violence. It is received like an act of violence. And you can't explain that based on her
How old are
education.
they, and do they have a job yet, or are they somebody who's going to completely fail to thrive in the world because of their sensitivity?
Gen X, raised Gen X, told Gen X through and through, like the epitome of Gen X.
Yeah.
You know, like if you watch the Gen X movies, she could be a character in those movies, right? So definitely not Gen Z, not wasn't raised like she's woke for all the good reasons, for all the right reasons, but she's held captive by this mind virus.
Maybe the CNN party line.
No, she doesn't watch CNN.
No.
And you know, I can easily, like, she is, you know, she knows her Chomsky too. She gets all of that.
Yeah.
But I cannot explain how she's not only incapable of making sense of it, she has, like, she seems to have, like, this elaborate defense mechanism against just thinking clearly about the subject at all. And
this is what evolutionary psychologists like Tooby and Cosmades, that's a husband and wife team, they say, like, humans, we're tribal, right? So we don't like truth, like finding the truth is not a big priority for us, but being in a tribe, feeling the protection of that tribe, the safety, the comfort of, you know, being a part of a narrative, that's really important to humans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely the mechanism that's being weaponized, right? It is. We are being shuffled into tribal lines, right? But yeah, I really do believe there is more coordination to it. I actually think that James Lindsay is you might not get from that book where James Lindsay stands now on the level of coordination. I'd find it actually
what
really
he wants
difficult
is
to
moderation. Like he wants.
That's
tell you what
a lot of that has to do with Helen Pluckrose.
Right, but at the same time, it's like that's the mindset that you really want. Right, that's the mindset that you want, is the same thing that has brought us to the place where we are. This wonderful society with so much benefits bestowed on all of us. Right, is liberalism, is the mindset, the idea of equality of opportunity for everyone, not judging somebody.
I'll make a prediction.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong. This is me making a prediction, like, on a whim.
Yeah.
That you're going to see James Lindsay become what might to some look like radicalized.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna follow in the footsteps, quite far behind. But what we saw happen to Tim Pool, who's now, like, campaigning for Trump.
Yeah.
I
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. He's full on lefty. He's full on endorsing Trump.
Yeah.
You're gonna see that happen to James Lindsay now.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever see James Lindsay endorsing Trump. I don't think that's not my prediction. But what I'm saying is you're gonna start to see James Lindsay shifting the way that we watched Tim Pool shift over the last
being
few
more
years.
serious in the countermeasures against this thing.
Yeah, like Tim Pool being willing to advocate that everybody vote for Trump, that Trump is as bad as he is what we all need to do. Like, I can't make that argument.
As opposed to
Biden,
as opposed to Biden, I don't know. Biden's pretty bad. at this
Yeah.
point.
But he's a puppet, and he's not. Kamala Harris is being appointed to the presidency. Biden is not physically, mentally capable of it, right? So it'll be President Kamala Harris. So the idea that Biden's even a contender is ridiculous. That we have two senile, well, one of them senile, but two old white, like too old, too white, as in like whiteness. They're both very white. They're both very old, and they're both sexual predators. If you believe the stories of Trump, which I think are quite plausible, that he's kind of licentious. He certainly doesn't seem like a good person when it comes to his view of women. But neither does Biden at all. And Biden is, like, if you want to talk about liars, like Trump is at least, he's authentic by it, but the lies that Biden has told, that's like if you had, like, I don't know if you've had like a cousin or something who had a problem with like pathological lying, or a friend, where they would make empirical claims that are just like verifiably false, and you cannot believe that they could think they could get away with saying that. Well, that's Joe Biden. Like, this is some of the lies he's told is ridiculous. And his plagiarism of the speeches of other politicians.
Trump
it's crazy.
lied too, right?
No, Trump lies almost by default.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is Trump makes shit up. He just fucking, he knows that you have to keep talking. And you just keep talking, you keep the reading level really low, right? And you talk with the right tone. You just gotta, the content doesn't matter. Just fill the void of the space so that you can look like the alpha male that knows what they're talking about, right? It's all just WWE psychology, right? That's different than what Biden was doing, right?
That reminds me of
like Biden lying about
the movie Idiocracy, where they have the wrestling, the professional wrestler as the president of the United States.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
That's essentially what we have, right?
Yeah.
Trump's playbook really does come out of the WWE like psychology. Like, there is a science to the WWE. There's a science to the psychology and the design of those events.
Yeah.
I've never understood them. That's another thing that, like, the way the shock and horror that I feel having watched this whole wokeness thing evolve over the last 10 years is how I felt when I was a young child watching my uncles and cousins watching WWF, the precursor to WWE.
Yeah.
Watching them watch that, I watched them in horror.
Yeah.
That I could not believe that they found this entertaining.
No, I hated the WWF, and I knew people who were into it for sure.
Really into it.
Yeah.
Because it was like the kids thought it was real the way that they thought Santa Claus was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Andrew Schultz?
I know the name.
He's a comedian who's talks about all this stuff, and Joe Biden as a puppet. He's like the people that are pulling the strings of Biden's corpse, and like blah blah. He just blasts out these hilarious strings of comedy about the situation.
Yeah. There's comedy there's a lot of allies in comedy, because comedians have to fight this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, the first ones to go are the intellectuals, comedians, in prior times poets, but nobody cares about poetry
Right.
anymore.
Well, he says he's already kicked off YouTube and everything. He's Instagram is where he does his career now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I watch Tim Pool daily just to keep up on things, because if there's something that I need to pay attention to, he's paying attention to it. I don't always agree with him. I honestly think he's slid too far. Like I kind of Tim Pool I've what's funny is that he went through a period where I was starting to get like really uncomfortable, because I could see him sliding and he couldn't see that he was sliding. At this point, I think he can now see that he slid, and he's just he's just gonna run with it. But I think he's I don't know, maybe bitten off more than he can chew when it comes to catering to the Trump crowd. But why am I mentioning this again? Well, I mean, I can't remember why I was saying it, but I tune into him to keep up on things because I don't have time to pay attention the way that I used to, which is great that it took Tim Pool a long time to catch up to me, and it didn't take James Lindsay very long, but it's nice to have people like James Lindsay and Tim Pool, because they caught up to where I am, and I'm too busy to be as obsessed with it as I was for years, up until like the last couple years maybe.
Yeah.
Because like I need to focus on the rest of my life and get my life together, and I need to take care of my mental health. So I can't afford to be as obsessed with it as I used to be. So it's nice to have some other people who have caught up to where I was at the time. But I can't remember why I was mentioning that. What were you just asking me?
Oh, I was talking about Andrew Schultz, the comedian.
Yeah, right. I was talking about comedy and how... Yeah, I didn't really have a point. But what do we do? This is the question. I still, like, I'm pulling back a bit, or have been pulling back a bit, in order to get my life back in order.
Yeah.
But once I get myself sort of stable,
Yeah.
there's no choice. I really wish that I could just fucking stop this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm at the point where I see the difference in my mental health when I'm not focusing on it compared to when I am.
See,
and
if it's affecting your mental health negatively, then it's got to be something wrong there.
It's seriously affecting my mental health, but there's no choice at this point.
Remember how I told you that I thought this book was a breath of fresh air?
Oh, yes. That's what we were about to talk about.
The end of this book was the breath of fresh air. The rest of it was delineating the extent of the insanity.
Yeah.
But then the last section is a few solutions offered.
Okay.
And so principled opposition, example number 1. They say, we affirm that racism remains a problem in society and needs to be addressed. We deny that critical race theory and intersectionality provide the most useful tools to do so, since we believe that racial issues are best solved through the most rigorous analyses possible. We contend that racism is defined as prejudiced attitudes and discriminatory behavior against individuals or groups on the ground of race and can be successfully addressed as such. We deny that racism is hard-baked into society via discourses, that it is unavoidable and present in every interaction and to be discovered and called out, and that it is part of a ubiquitous systemic problem that is everywhere, always, and all pervasive. We deny that the best way to deal with racism is by restoring social significance to racial categories and racially heightening their salience. We contend that each individual can choose not to hold racist views and should be expected to do so, that racism is declining over time, becoming rarer, and that we can and should see one another as humans first and members of certain races second. That issues of race are best dealt with by being honest about racialized experiences while still working towards shared goals and a common vision. That the principle of not discriminating by race should be universally upheld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're all fighting for. I mean, but how are we going to do that? Like, we're up against some serious forces that are willing to do a lot more than we are and willing to do things we're not willing to do.
But then they go to jail for it. Then we
No,
put
they
them
don't.
in jail.
No, they don't. They get released the very next day, and they're back on the street doing exactly the same thing.
Just make sure that Canada upholds the law. You can't do that stuff.
Yeah,
here.
you could have told the Americans that.
Well, we're not Americans, thank God.
Yeah, I know, but they would have had a better chance of fighting this, you would have thought at the time, right? You would think that Canada would be more prone to this than Americans. America is center right? America is the fact that like, we weren't there to tell them, to warn them about this ahead of time.
Well, you know,
right? And we're not there to warn Canada about it ahead of time either. When you say, I don't see it happening here, no, once you do, it'll be too late.
Maybe.
And the same thing will be happening. How do you think that it will be any different, that we won't be releasing the same criminals
I think enough people
the night after we
think like me? Like, we believe in liberal society. We believe in not being racist, not judging people based on...
we believe it the way the rest of the West Coast of America does, and they're practically the worst.
Right, and you do see a lot of it here.
Yeah,
I do see it.
Yeah, like, how can you possibly think that it wouldn't be just as bad, if not worse, in Canada?
Well, because you have to fight it by promoting these
and
liberal
you
attitudes.
have to ask yourself, why isn't it happening in Canada? And I can tell you why. Because in Canada, it's grassroots. In America, it's targeted. It's engineered by enemies of America.
Maybe.
China does not want to destroy Canada. Has no reason to.
Yeah, I'm not there in the States, so I don't know. You could be right. I don't know.
Like,
you could easily be right.
But what this distinction, I'm not sure if you've got my point yet, though. The same things are happening in Canada. Why isn't it as bad as America?
Because we're better people for the most part. We have a society that is better at preventing atrocity, better at preventing violence. We're an anti-violent, we're a peacekeeping nation. We don't allow shit like that. And if anybody with a consciousness like mine is in the presence...
We don't allow Antifa. Antifa's doing the same thing. The reason why it's not getting out of control is because it's organic in Canada.
Well, that's a conspiracy theory that I don't necessarily see any validity to. I don't see any evidence.
I'm not theorizing on how it's coordinated, but what I'm saying, well, is it organic in Canada? Yes.
Sure, seems like it.
There's something different going on in America. You tell me what that is.
I've always thought there were a lot of idiots down there.
So you think that you add more idiots and
you
Canada would look like the United States?
More indoctrination into idiotic ideology.
They don't have more indoctrination than Canada does. It's the same. We have the same...
Well, then maybe it's a culture of violence. Maybe the violence comes easier to Americans than it does to Canadians.
Why Antifa is a bigger problem in America than here?
Why they're more violent there? Why they shoot people?
So the Second Amendment,
gun culture, yeah.
So you think that Second Amendment gun culture makes Antifa worse in America than in Canada?
Makes them more quick to pull triggers and shoot people? Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a question: how about Germany? The German Antifa is far more vicious than the American Antifa. Why aren't they completely out of control the way that they are in America?
They're not.
No. And they're far more vicious. They set their police on fire. I've said, the videos I could show you of Antifa in Germany. It's fucking nuts.
Well, how are you saying they're not out of control then if they're setting police on fire?
No, they're not doing it now.
When were they doing that?
These are individual events that have happened in protests in Germany.
Yeah.
At how far Antifa had gone in Germany was always far worse than Antifa did in America. Right? But now America is worse than anywhere. Right? It's because it's not grassroots. Grassroots doesn't move like this. I think you just have less experience with what grassroots Antifa looks like to know the difference, because I've been watching them for 10 years, right? And I was watching them in 2000 at the what is it? I want to say WTO. World Trade, yeah, the World Trade Organization. Was it WTO? What the fuck? The G8, whatever it was in 2000 in Seattle. That was the first time I was introduced to the Black Bloc. I've been watching that since, I was tuned in then. That was probably like the height of my leftist, and that was like 2000. But the difference, that was no more or less grassroots than you have grassroots today. There's something else going on. But I wouldn't mind. Like, what are your ideas? Because this is something that I want to actually focus on once I do actually get my life in order in ways that I don't want to discuss. When I have time for it, I want to make time to focus on what do we do about this? Like, this is an emergency. Like, we may be looking back on this time as being post the beginning of a civil war, right? It just hasn't hit us yet, right? The Civil War, by historical terms, in the future may have already started. So what do we do? It's this the thing that I find most insidious is the attack on people for not being on their side. Like, when Black Lives Matter will go through a neighborhood and just to wake people up from sleep, like at midnight, wake up. Or they'll go to a cafeteria on the street or something, and they'll demand that everybody salute them with a fist, and if you don't, you get like harassed.
Yeah. In your face, screaming. Yeah.
How do you harassing people for not participating.
The person who had their
deserved
face
to be harassed,
getting screamed in for not putting up a fist was somebody who was eating their dinner who had been protesting with these people for weeks.
Yeah,
and they're screaming in their face, trying to get them to.
Yeah, like one of the few examples of that I've seen.
Yeah.
I'm anti-doxing.
Yeah.
But I swear to God, that woman screaming in their faces should be doxed and people should come to their house with speakers and not let her sleep. No, that's totally wrong.
Again, that's
totally
reactionary,
wrong.
right?
This is the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying that as a joke.
Here's what I want. Here's what I want to see happen.
I'm saying this as a joke, and I'm not endorsing this.
Yeah.
But it seems justified to me that the organizers of those groups that go through the like suburban areas of Portland to wake people from their sleep so that they can't sleep should be doxxed so that we can show up at their house and blast a recording of their own voice waking people up and just not let them sleep and just keep that. This is my fantasy.
This is reactionary.
I'm not endorsing this. Please don't respond to me like I'm endorsing this. This is a fantasy. Let me fantasize.
But don't fantasize. Fantasize about being a moderate voice.
Until she's forced to say, please stop. That fantasy I have to entertain to keep my own sanity.
Just be the moderate voice. Like, we have conversations like this.
Don't do that. I'm just saying
don't do that.
that she deserves it.
Point out the irrationality, point out the contradictions, the pure inaccuracy, the falseness of their ideology, and just remind people about what's good about a liberal society like the one that we actually live in. What you're talking about
is grassroots and slow progress.
That slow progress is the only way that things get better, and that's what we actually have been doing for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah, it's the accelerationism. I don't know if progress can win against accelerationism. I'm not convinced.
You just need rational voices.
No, I think I actually, and I'm not joking anymore.
Yeah.
I actually think you're wrong.
Well, that's fine. And I also said I would go to war if I had to.
There's no way that we can win, and by the time you go to war, it's done.
It's not done.
There's nothing left to fight for by that point.
I can fight it.
No, you won't win.
Me and my army will fight it. We'll win. We'll win. There's enough.
You won't.
Yeah, of course you will. We'll prevail.
No, you won't.
Yes, we will. It's not going to be a communist revolution in my country.
Winning a war isn't magic, man. You can't win by pure will. That's not how wars are fought. The forces that you're up against, you can't win a fucking ground war with them. You can't win. First of all, if you try to a ground war against China would be one of the stupidest things anybody could contemplate doing, right? Like, you can't win this.
My grandpa always told me that China would be the opponent in the Third World War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your grandpa was smart.
Mm-hmm.
No, we need to take serious action. Progress and argument is not going to be enough. I've been advocating that for a long time, and I was about to say, just trust me. But seriously, you're not going to convince me that I was right all these years saying what you're trying to say to me.
What about all of the great things that our Canadian society is, and all of the great things that American society is? Do you really think that this nonsense movement is
going to destroy all of that?
Is going to destroy all
absolutely.
of that?
Absolutely.
I don't. I think that people like you and me, with our rational voices, can stop it.
No, I've been saying that for a decade, and I was wrong. And you're not going to convince me that I was right. You're not going to convince me that I was right. I was wrong. It's going to take serious action. We cannot compete with this. We cannot compete with this level of coordination with just rational discussion. It's too late for that. And I'm not saying violence. Violence would be them winning. When we get violent, they've already won. That's the last nail in the coffin if we get violent. Right? Absolutely. And not to mention if we're violent, then we're the baddies. Right?
What about the fact that like our society, even though it has been, you know, many levels of it have been infiltrated by this, our society is still like a liberal society. The government and the military, you know, and everything, like we have a rule of law. We have these things. If there are people who are going to start killing people in our streets, then we have the rule of law and the military to prevent that. Just like Donald Trump sending in the the guard.
Has that more so than we do.
And that's why they're sending in the National Guard to stop these protests.
No, they're not.
Trump will.
He's offering it, but it's not up to him.
Right.
The Democratic governors and mayors are choosing to re-release the same thugs they arrested the night before, so that they can continue to assault the same police officers they assaulted the night before.
What's the agenda?
You tell me. I don't know. But it's coordinated. It is definitely coordinated.
They just want to get reelected. These.
No. Ted Wheeler has Antifa showing up to his own home. Antifa is just as anti-Ted Wheeler as Patriot Prayer is. Everybody blames Ted Wheeler for the mess in Portland. Everyone. There's not a soul in the country of note that doesn't blame Ted Wheeler for it. But they all blame him for different reasons. Right? And the real reason is because Ted Wheeler has been an ally to Antifa. The best ally they could have in his position. And yet Antifa is protesting his house and demanding he resign because he's not an ally enough.
Right.
And you explain that to me. You tell me how that came from our universities. The Antifa part I can see coming from the universities, but Ted Wheeler remaining in power all this time? Allowing Antifa to literally run the streets? You can't explain that to me through critical race theory. That's coordinated. What Nancy Pelosi isn't a fucking critical race theorist, right? There's coordination going on here. CNN isn't.
I see the left eating itself. I see these critical ideologies, which are like a circular firing squad where they're all just shooting each other.
But what does that have to do with Ted Wheeler?
Ted Wheeler is somebody who's helping them, who's on their side, and they're shooting at him.
No, not at all. That's not it. That has nothing to do with Ted Wheeler's motivations. I don't think you get the political side of
his motivations are to get reelected.
Well, of course. I mean, that's not that you can't say that he's not motivated by being reelected. That's the name of the game. But that doesn't say anything. You're not adding any information by saying that. The effort to stop Trump by any means necessary is scarier than Trump by far. What has mobilized, like I was there when Trump first got elected. I was there like half joking that I hope the deep state really exists so that they can save us from Trump. I had no idea that it did exist and they're going to try to save us from Trump and they're willing to destroy America to do it. But there is definite coordination. I don't think you, and I couldn't give you a course on the fucking nature of the fucking coordination of fake news and shit that's gone on in this resistance, this by any means necessary. But there's clearly a willingness to destroy America, to stop Trump. And Trump is the last person I want to see president of the United States. Like, I used to like Biden before. It's not Biden himself. I know a lot more about what's terrible about Biden, and I find his mental faculties failing kind of alarming, especially that nobody's willing to actually say anything about it.
Except for the comedians that I watch.
Yeah. Trump's the last person I want to see there. And just the symbology of Trump being president has made so much of this possible. I've always been anti-Trump. But the anti-Trump, or sorry, the anti-Trump like resistance. I'm like anti-Trump because the resistance is scarier. I overblew the threat of Trump when he was first elected and underestimated the danger of having everybody unite against him. The deals done with devils has been worse than Trump by far. Trump's not nearly as bad as the press makes him out to be. He's not great by any stretch of the imagination. But he's not Hitler. No. He's a WWE promoter style personality, and he's actually a pretty good negotiator, right? That's not enough to be a great president. But you know, his support among black men has only gone up. Latino men has only gone up. Yeah. Why? Because he's racist? It doesn't matter. It's funny that it's men, because it's sad actually that it's just men who are willing who are capable of seeing through it and like seeing that, like, even if he is racist, I don't give a shit. That isn't the only. I'm not going to make my life major decisions based on the opinions that somebody holds. You know, like they're willing to get along with people who don't like them. You gotta have respect for that. You gotta have respect for people who are willing to get along with people they don't like and don't like them. And that doesn't seem to be an acceptable tone of voice to speak in anymore these days. If you're not yelling and screaming and hating people, then you're not moral by the metrics of public discourse these days. And that all needs to be attacked. It needs to be ridiculed. It needs to be that needs to feel it. We need to make it acceptable to ridicule and outright attack it.
I've been trying to do that since they closed the schools. Since before they closed the schools. So, but it is crazy too. Now that we're all isolated, we're all isolated in our ideological echo chambers now. We can't have these conversations anymore because we're not forced to be with people, amongst people who have differing point of views.
I think we need to. There are some legitimate forms of protest action that I find distasteful. That we might be in a position of being not forced, but obligated to use, like start boycotts based on politics, but do it explicitly pointing out why we shouldn't be doing this. I really do think there's a way of saying this is what it looks like when we do it. How do you like it? Yeah. We don't want to be doing this, but we're only doing it as a reflection of you. We'll stop when you stop. You know, there's many ways that we could be doing that.
Yeah.
We'll stop when you stop. We're only doing it to be a reflection of you. We're going to keep doing it until you stop. We'll stop the moment you stop, you know? And I don't know. I mean, I need to give that a lot more thought, but so many times I've seen, ways that's the thing. The problem is the resistance to this is grassroots, and their side is so well coordinated. They've got generations of organizers and a science to this, and the resistance to it is organic.
Yeah, but the resistance to it is rational.
But that's not magic, dude. What's being repeated from history is that rationality doesn't rule, right? That are taking it for granted that rationality rules. That's what we're gonna find out the hard way when history repeats itself. That it doesn't win by default. Rationality doesn't win by default. So, I don't know. I mean, the alternative to fighting their fight without getting violent is to just give up and, get out of the cities.
That's what I said to Ackham too. I said if Canada ever fell to communism, I'd leave.
If Canada ever fell to communism, I would leave. Yeah. But I certainly, if they ever showed up at my door, they would have to take me away dead. I mean, maybe I'd go to a gulag just to survive it in spite of them.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I'd probably do that.
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
I'd go there and I would mock and ridicule them to their face daily for fun, and watch them try to make me suffer, and they couldn't. I would get too much satisfaction. They'd have to cut my tongue out. This is so crazy that we have these thoughts in our heads. Like, look at what it's doing to us, And I don't know how you can't not have these, like, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I know. We're looking at the danger, and it's scary, but it is even though it's exerting influence on a great scale, it still is very fringe. Yeah. And if you just look at everything that's good about society, hopefully that can bring some tranquility to your mind.
No, I actually don't see. I don't see this being turned around easily. It's sweeping through governments and giant corporations, and that's not being halted, right? And Trump's going to end up winning. Like, the way things are going, Trump's going to win.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the beginning of the Civil War.
I don't know.
It's not going to be good when Trump wins.
Trump's at the helm, though. I mean, I would love to see what he actually does in order to. I mean, I hate to say it, but
no, their fantasy of a fascist dictatorship coming down on them will look like it's coming to fruition.
That's fine, but
because
I like to think that having. I hate to say this. Because I do not like
Trump wins,
Donald Trump as a president.
Civil War. Do you want
okay? If you say so,
the revolution to happen over the next 10 years or to happen overnight?
Hey, listen. If a war happens, if a war happens, I'm willing to accept that possibility, and I do think there's a good chance that the non-critical theorists, the non-Marxists, will win.
Oh no, they definitely will win. They have all the guns.
So then what? What's the issue?
What's the issue is that it's going to be at the cost of a strongman fucking response to what are otherwise good people, right? Like, I don't want to see people dying in the streets.
Yeah, but I'd much rather not live in a communist world, society.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is what's so sad about it is that they won't recognize, they won't know that that's what they're fighting for.
No, they don't.
Right? Even when it's all said and done, they still won't know that that's what we were fighting for. So I really don't know how it could be won, because you can't kill an idea, right? Winning a ground war, a violent war, isn't the same thing as winning a war against this ideology, right? So it'll set them back, but it'll set us back in the same way that Russia was set back when the Soviet Union fell. I mean, I see America becoming more like Russia in it and Eastern Europe if the left got crushed. If the left was crushed, I actually think America would start to look more like Russia, because I think the right does have, like, the idea that Trump works for Russia there's I think it comes from something in the psychology of the American conservative that kind of like make America great again. I think a lot of American conservatives, when they think of a great America, they think of America having a culture more like Russia. And I find that very repulsive. And I don't think they actually know what they wish for. But like the right wing of America, like not just your regular conservative, but the right wing, the right wing that you should have a healthy fear of, I think would want America to look more like Russia, like more homophobic and more like macho, where they like celebrate their local. It would definitely be in different from the like mafia state Russia, but much more of a macho alpha male kind of culture, which I find impossible to get by in. That's the psychology that we have a healthy fear of that exists in the far right of America. I think that's where the paranoid fantasy of Russia being behind Trump it feeds into. But I don't think winning by force of arms is a win really at all. I think by that time it's too late, and we're in the middle of what looks like the beginning of a civil war. So we can't just have discussions. It's too late for just having discourse. We need to like seriously start doing things. I really don't understand why there aren't more, like, there should be like a loose change documentary that blows up, that kind of thing, like from when we were younger. There should be something like that that's sensible and like not right wing, not left wing, that can shine a light on just the nature of the mess that we're in, that can bring together liberals and conservatives to fight this monster.
We should make that documentary.
We should.
So the way Eric Weinstein describes it is like, imagine a chart where you've got the two sides going up like this, and then in the middle there's a trough. And we live in this trough, and that's where we want to live, because that's the best place to live, and that's where we we oscillate back and forth between the right and the left of the political spectrum. And then
Yeah.
what happens if you get too far up on one side of this, you
Yeah.
fall off the edge and you're in communism, or you fall off the edge and you're in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to keep that ball moving around.
That's a
or you don't
functioning
have any-
society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Eric Weinstein is such a brilliant man. He's a little quirky,
Yeah.
but have you watched his Harvard, was it at Harvard or MIT, where he gave that talk on his what was it? Not unified field theory. It was a theory of everything that he presented.
Eric Weinstein. I didn't. I
were you
watched a
talking
little bit
about
of
Brett?
that. I was talking about Brett, but
okay.
no,
Yeah.
Eric. Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. He's
Yeah.
got a theory of everything. It's too much for me to handle,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, Brett Weinstein is pretty smart.
Yeah.
But Eric Weinstein is he's Mensa genius.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when he does, it's too bad that Critical Theories wasn't written with Eric Weinstein. Eric probably just doesn't have the time for it.
Brett and
Eric is even better than James at articulating these concepts.
Brett and Heather were thanks for their contribution to the book.
Yeah.
So Brett Weinstein was involved.
Yeah, but Eric Weinstein's articulation of concepts, of articulations of the mechanics of toxic wokeness, have always been the most brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said they're LARPing, like live action role playing, like the Antifa. They're not real. They it's a video game. They shoot that guy, bang bang.
Well, that's not original to him. I couldn't off the top of my head give you an example of something original to him.
It's cosplay.
Yeah. He was the one who coined the intellectual dark web. Yeah. So I'm thinking about starting a podcast, or even just I really want to start this how to be an anti-racialist movement.
Yeah.
I'm not the right person to be a leader, but I want to bring people together on the idea of it.
Yeah.
Let's get some people replicating what the critical race theorists have done with anti-racialism, because anti-racialism makes all the sense in the world, right? Just do what the critical race theorists are doing. Do what they're willing to do. Do that on anti-racialism. You could do the same frame games you do to convince, if you had critical race theorists and anti-racialists side by side, and most of the people who have sided with the anti-racist groups would have sided with the anti-racialist groups. They just weren't there. They weren't an option, right? The goodwill of these people were taken advantage of, because that was the only option they were given, right?
Yeah. But where do you get the opportunity to talk to them? Because, especially now with
you
with,
don't.
with
That's
the
why I'm
lockdown.
saying discussion doesn't work.
Well, what do you do? What's anti-racialism? What does that look like? How do you change things with
You
that?
have to. It needs to be organized and coordinated, and it will require money, and effort and work in ways that is just not very well organized. But people are starting to see just how dire it is. Little things I've been toying around with this idea of having a podcast, or even just some kind of group, the Uncancelled and Friends, of just people who have this, who can see what's going on, who are also horrified and see the kind of emergency we're in, to just simply support each other in all the ways that people need support. Like everything from just mental health, how do you stay sane, to how do you get more uncancelable, how do you what do you do once you are canceled? How do you
make a podcast?
How do you make a podcast, right? Should you be stocking up on food? How do you defend yourself? Does your state, what does your state's self-defense law look like? What would you do if you were actually attacked by Antifa? What do you do about doxing? How do you protect your online behavior from hacking? Everything, and how to not let the paranoia get to you. We need to support each other, especially people, who lose their jobs over this shit and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And
for refusing to go to a racial bias retraining sessions.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. And how do you fight that?
Yeah.
Because there are ways of fighting it.
Yeah.
Right. And there are people who are trying
That's
to fight
discrimination. Like you refuse to go to that. You can say, hey, there's no scientific basis for this. I was let go because I won't buy into this ideology.
Yeah, and you won't win.
You can fight them legally.
Where you might win that some places.
Yeah.
You won't win that here.
I
don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
That's discrimination.
Yeah, I don't think you'd win that in Canada.
Oh, you should win that in Canada.
I don't think you would.
Yeah.
I think maybe in Alberta. I honestly think Canada's gone further than you think, and I think that I think you give us way too much credit if you think that what's happening in America couldn't happen in Canada. You give us way too much credit.
I don't think that it couldn't happen here.
Yeah.
I'm watching out for it, but yeah.
But why hasn't it happened? I mean, it is happening in places, but only at the level that you would expect if it was just organic. It doesn't catch on. It doesn't seem to catch on.
I'm still wondering why you're so convinced that it's some kind of artificial intelligence.
No, I'm not saying necessarily artificial. I'm just asking the question. Why is there such a big difference between America and Canada, for example? Like, why does one look organic and the other one looks out of control, accelerated?
I think Canada is a better place than virtually anywhere in the United States. Than California.
Than Oregon?
Yes.
Than Oregon?
Yes. Yeah, because Portland is so been radicalized for a long time. They've got that. Portland's a radical city.
But so is Vancouver.
But I think there's some level of...
Portland, Vancouver, and Seattle are sister cities. They're...
But I think we are the better older brother somehow. I don't know, we're younger, but I think we are. I think we're better.
We are actually the Oregon territories. We are actually from the same stock, right?
But of course, we've been different since we've been Canada.
Well, only since whatchamacallit, they moved the 49th parallel. But there is a reason why Portland feels like Vancouver in the 80s and Seattle feels like, like Vancouver in the 90s if it was like twice as big. Their cultures
a protest city too?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just smaller population than Seattle.
Yeah.
But like San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, you don't see the common culture there?
Sure I do, but I don't know. I have this sense that we've got that je ne sais quoi, that intelligence that like
You don't
liberal,
think that they
peaceful
you don't think that they have
mindset.
this intelligence down there?
Somehow
That's
I don't.
That's kind of insulting.
No, okay.
Actually. Like,
Forget the intelligence. Forget intelligence. Well, partially, but I think that there is more problems with polarization, and just I think there's more. The United States is more problematic because of its culture.
I suppose to a large extent, you could probably even explain away the gap that I'm emphasizing, just simply on the fact that if we had our own equivalent of Trump in office right now, then yeah, Canada would be in flames.
It's more than that, though. The gun culture, the violence, the crime rates, this and that. I think it's just different.
Well, Antifa hasn't been pulling out guns until just the other day.
Not
really.
them. I'm talking about the general crime rates. I think are higher in most United States cities.
Well, but what are you comparing it to, right? We've only got a handful of cities, and they're small, right? I mean, they've got 10 times as many people. It's a very different dynamic. I don't think you can really place it to that. But there really is no reason why Canada, why what's happening in Portland couldn't happen in Vancouver. There's no reason why that.
I agree.
Be the case.
I agree.
And I think if Canadians were convinced that they had a fascist at the helm, then Canada would be in flames.
And yet we don't.
I don't think there's anything
good.
special about Canadians that isn't true of liberal Americans.
Unfortunately, well, liberal Americans, but America as a whole, as a whole, with all of its dynamics.
But what does that have to do with Portland?
That has to do with Canada not being like the United States in that way, not being so susceptible to such polarization and violence.
No, I really do think that we'd be up in flames if we right now had.
But why don't we? Why don't we have a Trump for a president? Because we're not America.
America had Obama, which for 8 years. Why did they have that then? It's kind of an irrelevant question because we could have a conservative. That's not impossible.
But not a
just like Obama wasn't impossible.
President.
Well, we could be on our way there.
Sure.
I mean, the way things are playing out.
Yeah.
I think we're actually in a pretty good position to hopefully we'll watch what's happening in America and we'll not allow anybody to nobody will want to go to extremes. But I mean, what's his name? The guy who just won the Conservative Party leadership is more right-wing than moderate, which is really sad because a moderate conservative voice would be really helpful. Yeah, so you never know. Give it 5-10 years, we could have a Canadian Trump. But yeah, I do have hope. I just don't see discourse winning. I think things will have to get bad before they get worse, and yeah, it's shocking what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I don't see how allowing the destruction, the people who they're fighting for are going to be the first ones to suffer and the last ones to suffer. The suffering in the black community, in the black communities that are being destroyed by Black Lives Matter, those communities are not going to recover for a long time from the destruction. I don't know how they think they're helping anyone.
How are they destroying black communities?
Burning them down.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah. And people watch these cities burn down and then they hand Black Lives Matter their money because they support it. And I don't understand I don't understand the insanity. It requires that if mainstream corporate news was anything like it was in the 90s, this would be impossible. they could stop it overnight. They could stop this insanity overnight just by covering it and framing it in a relatively rational, or if they covered it in a a slightly right wing fashion, like they did back in the 90s. All they would need to do is just fucking show the footage, right? That they were refusing to show.
Right.
And
seeing on
stop calling it mostly peaceful when it's when the peaceful people are simply there to cheer on the violent people. So maybe this, I haven't tuned in, but maybe this assassination of this Patriot Prayer guy will raise some eyebrows, because this one might get out the way that the Andy No beating did.
Yeah.
And people will, for the first time, see Antifa, just how evil Antifa is.
Yeah.
Right. When people were passing around footage of Andy No being beat up by Antifa, I was like, guys, I've been posting this stuff for years, tons of it. I could post pictures of Antifa beating up people they don't know. I could post this all day long, all night and day. And anybody who Andy No is the only example that most people know about.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need to make like a montage. We'll start with that, but like make like a documentary to just show just how out of control like the role that Ted Wheeler and Nancy Pelosi have played in this is absolutely disgusting. And if people just knew just little facts like that, I think would wake people up. But at the same time, it's really shocking for people, and I'm seeing this all over the place, even on coverage of the coronavirus and stuff. People are starting to see that they don't know how to trust the news anymore. Like, they just don't know how to trust them anymore. They don't know how to make sense of what they're being told anymore. To me, it seems to make a lot of sense that China's got all its pieces in place, and now it's just a blitzkrieg, and it's gonna come down on us faster than we can do anything about it. And almost by definition, that's the way it would work if it were an artificial general intelligence. I say almost by definition, because it's not like technically by definition, but you couldn't know that artificial general intelligence was taking over the world until it was too late. By the time you start hearing people making sense saying that, it's too late, because it only needs to cover its tracks to the extent that it matters to cover its tracks. So, and it does matter that people aren't all freaking out that AI is taking over the world. It does matter that doesn't happen until it gets all of its pieces in place. And then it doesn't matter quite so much who's yelling and screaming once we've already built our own cage.
Well, my mind is blown once again, Michael Keeling.
Yeah, well, I hope I didn't deflate it.
No, I'm good. But, I enjoyed it once again.
Yeah, and again, I don't actually take myself anywhere nearly as seriously. I couldn't imagine what insanity it would be if I took my own thoughts seriously. So just as like a disclaimer, this isn't the only way that I see the world. I do actually, I don't walk around thinking I'm living in a simulation most of the time.
Or that China is on the way right now.
On the way, on the doorstep, and there's no hope. Like, obviously, if I thought it was artificial general intelligence, I'd be like, dude, just go, find a place to die. No, basically the only option would be to submit.
I'd sail to Thailand, man. That's a good country. Everyone's friendly there. I just go live in a village, cook, do my rice.
Yeah, I'd find a way to live in one of those pictures that you see on your the wallpaper on your Google Play device. You know, you see those beautiful like green water like beaches. I'd go find some place, figure out how I could live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Just raise some chickens.
I'd be like, you know what, China, you do you, and I'm gonna go over here and do me. I hope we can live together. Maybe I'll come back later when everything is settled down, and because the kind of terrifying thought is that if the Nazis won by now, we wouldn't know that they were bad, that it was a bad thing, right? And we would be living in a world with very little racism because they would have just wiped that we wouldn't have a problem with intermixing races.
Yeah, they could you'd be indoctrinated to think that there used to be these evil people, these evil black people or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they're gone now, so it's okay.
Yeah. So like, you know, maybe if we hung out in some tropical island long enough, we come back and they're living in a utopia. What's also kind of scary is that they'll you know what? If that were true, go along with it, dude. Because if you cooperate, they might let you live forever. You know, cure aging, and you could decide on your eye color, and you could live in a post scarcity world that was created by this AI that's got everybody in its way out of its way. Maybe you know, when you think about it, communism would be the only thing that would make sense because it was what the God was programmed to do. So if you didn't go with it, you were just completely and utterly irrational. So that's a scary thought, right? But the generation that comes after ours wouldn't know the difference. They'd be living in heaven compared to most people on the planet these days. It's a crazy world we live in. I swear to God, I was dialed into the wrong simulation. Right? Maybe this artificial general intelligence is what it takes for me to become my trillion-year-old self, and it's the only way. To quote Doctor Strange, it was the only way. We're in the end game now.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, let's do that again. Maybe once I've read the book.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
All right.